Hello YouTube, Easy Crypto Trading here, and I am going to go through a little technical analysis on Bitcoin and where I think it's going. So, right now I am using two moving averages on the 1 hour chart. They are very different on the day chart, and I can go over those in a second. But I'm using the 8,515 moving average, and the reason I'm using that one, it is a very weird number. I'm using it because it lines up perfectly with this baseline here. Before I was using the one to line up here or here, and each time it drops below, I use that as the new one. This one, it found support 3 times and then bounced, or I guess 4 if you count this little wick right here. So, knowing that, this is a generally weakened point, unfortunately. As much as we all like the bull markets, if it does come down to meet this again, it might not stop. So we need to be a little bit careful there. We also have to note that with this moving average, I'm using the 465 because it lines up at the top right here. That is our marker for if it's going to go higher right now. If it breaks through that point, it's basically the same situation right here, but opposite, where I had it lined up with this. It was a few off, but it gives you a general idea. Once it actually broke through there, that was when we started our major downtrend here. So I'm looking for it to break up above this line. That is the goal. That's our confirmation point. And right now it's looking like it'll do that somewhere around 7,300 if it does. Although it hasn't hit that point at all yet, except up here. We need it to hit it a few times relatively quickly to break through. Just like it's done down here. So right now I'm predicting a bear market, but I leave full room for all of you bulls out there. There is a possibility that we are going to have a bull market. It's just less likely in my opinion. If we do drop below this line, the point I believe we're going to is around $5,000 to $5,500. And the reason I believe that is comparing it to the cryptocurrency crash back in 2013, 2014. I've been using Fibonacci lines to compare them. Why am I on log? Okay. So, right here, looking at Bitcoin starting from $0, very baseline, to the top. I'm actually going to give this a few more lines. I basically just split this into 16 lines. My fib lines are actually a little bit off. This is supposed to be 618 and like 382 or something. So a little bit off there, but I've just split this evenly into 16 for measurement purposes. Helps me to figure out where everything's going. And what Bitcoin has done since the crash started is it had a bounce off the 375 line, this green line right here, and it hit that twice. Went a little bit below it the first time, but that's okay. Then it came down and hit the 50% correction line, and then the 625 a little bit further, 625 again, broke through. So looking at that, we're at a 625 correction, 62% correction basically. And if we go back to the Bitcoin crash way back when, in 2013, we line up our crypto, or our, I don't know what I'm saying. We line up our Fibonacci lines with this, and we look what it did. It came down, and it hit, actually it almost hit the 375 line. It didn't quite make it. So I wonder if I adjusted this slightly if it would be easier to see. Because this is really baseline, and it may have started from here. But it basically comes down to the 375 line, and then it comes down to the 50 line, and then it comes down to the 625 line twice. That's where we're at now. These aren't exact numbers, especially in the beginning. Things tended to fluctuate a lot more. They weren't near as exact as they are now. But then it came up, down to the 75 line, came up, and then it came down to the 8125 line, an 82% correction. Bounced, and then we hit an 87% correction, about a 90% correction there at the very bottom. So that's kind of scary, looking at a 90% correction on Bitcoin. But that is a possibility. In fact, I'm predicting it. And a lot of people don't like me for it. A lot of people in the chats I go to don't tend to appreciate me telling me that we're going down to $2,500. But hey, I'll give my honest opinion. So right now we are at the 625 line, the third time on our current charts, which means we're supposed to drop to the 75% line before we have a major bounce. Knowing that, this comes back up to the 50% correction line, and then back down to the 75 and keeps going. So if we go and we look at that in the context of our current situation, let me just line this up a little bit. We're probably going to come down to about $5,000. That is my prediction. This downtrend is not going to break until we hit $5,000. And at that point, we are going to have a really nice bounce, a lot of people getting very, very excited. And from there, we are going all the way up to probably $10,000 right there. So this is a good time for profit. It's going to be about a 30% profit, as in anyone who is buying right now who thinks it's going up, you're not going to lose money. You're going to make money as long as you hold it through. So for you bulls out there, you believers, feel free to buy now if you're scared of missing the bottom. I am personally waiting a little bit longer, or until we see a bit of a change. And let me add an extra moving average here and show you my point of dropping out on my prediction and thinking it's bouncing early. Gotta line this up right. And I use moving averages in a way where I line them up. I use trial and error until they line up. Okay, there we go. 20-day. This is what we're looking at. It was a point of resistance here, and when it broke through, that was the 50% point from the bottom here to the top here. When it broke through, it was pretty close to 50%. It was a little bit below that. That basically gave me a general idea of how high that bounce was going. From right here, if it breaks through that again, we're probably going to have a decent bounce, and that's when I'd start to consider buying in. But as of right now, if it were to break through, we'd only be going up to about 8,200, which is not really a big deal. I mean, it's something that I'm definitely going to trade, but then I'd have to watch that. And once it forms that point, it'll come up, then it'll come back down a little bit. And then once it breaks that again, that's when I'd start to really consider buying in, because once it breaks that point again, then that's our 50% point to the top. And each time it does that, it should have basically twice as big of a run-up. Sometimes that is not the case. Once it starts getting too big, then it starts getting cut in half again. But basic idea is we're gonna get some run-ups. Like this could stop here because this is the baseline. But it's something to watch. Every time it breaks above the previous high or a little bit below that, then it's a sign that we may have a good run-up. So I am waiting for confirmation on that before making a serious trade. But let's go back to 1 hour. Delete that moving average. So right now we're looking at being just below the 675 line, and I've lined this up, and this is lined up with the top here, and we are pinching tight. It's getting tighter and tighter as we go. It is not being allowed to move anywhere, which means the next move we're going to get is probably going to be relatively large, and I am very excited for it. Because as soon as it breaks the top line or the bottom line, I am going to jump in on that, and I'm going to hardcore short or long based on the situation. The hope is that it breaks downwards, because there is a lot more room to drop. And I mentioned before, I think 5K is going to be our bottom. And after that, we're going to have a nice run up to 10K. So that's 100% profit right there if you buy it at that point. My prediction is correct. That is what I'm looking for. That is my goal. And I will continue to watch and wait. I'm going to swing trade a little bit in here for fun, but once it breaks, that's when I'm going to make the big moves. So if anybody, if there's anyone here that disagrees with me, I would love to hear about it in the comments. I'd love to see what people think. Feel free to have debates in there. I don't know. Get some arguments going. It's fun to see the different viewpoints on Bitcoin and where it's going, and it's always good to hear contradicting views so you don't just stick with whatever you hear. So like, comment, subscribe, and I hope everyone has a great day. Peace.